But after finding help from bystanders to no avail, she uses a fire axe to break Jack free, and they begin their escape to the boat deck. As they reach the boat deck, Jack and Rose find most of the lifeboats gone, but as they run to one of the remaining lifeboats they run into Cal. Cal gives Rose his coat to keep her warm and says there is a lifeboat waiting for Rose, to which she boards. Cal promises there is a boat on the other side that he and Jack can board. Rose's boat begins to lower into the water, but as the boat reaches a deck, Rose jumps back to the Titanic. Jack races to meet her at the grand staircase and she says she will not leave without him. Above on the boat deck, Cal watches in anger when he finally realizes he has lost his trophy wife to a third-class scum. Cal steals Lovejoy's gun and attempts to kill Jack and Rose, who run for their lives down the grand staircase to the flooding middle part of E-deck. Cal meanwhile has given up the pursuit after his bullets were gone. Cal also realizes he left the heart of the ocean in his coat pocket which he gave to Rose and laughs, which Lovejoy does not appreciate. Jack and Rose run through the pantry down a staircase and find a young barefoot 3-year-old Slovakian boy standing in the water of the rapidly flooding hallway. They attempt to rescue him but his father has come back for him and he pushes Jack away. Jack, Rose, the boy, and his dad are caught in fast-flowing water as the doors to the next hallway give way from the pressure. As they attempt to escape to the higher decks, they find themselves trapped by a locked gate. A steward passes by and after pleas from Jack and Rose he tries to free them by unlocking the gate but accidentally drops his keys, gives up, and moves on. After picking up the keys and coming close to drowning in the rising water, Jack unlocks the gate and they escape back up to the boat deck, but not before making a stop in the first-class smoking room where they find Thomas Andrews looking stunned to the painting above of the fireplace. He sees them and gives up his life jacket to Rose. He apologizes for not building a stronger vessel and they say goodbye. At the forward boat deck, the last 2 collapsibles are prepared, but with no luck, as they are tied to the officers' quarters and getting them off is difficult. Boat B falls upside down on deck and Boat A was attached to the davits and crashes down a provisional slide, made with oars, the right way up. First Officer Murdoch then starts to control the big crowd that is gathered. Cal reminds him of their deal, but he throws Cal's money back at him and pushes him back, looking at all the men, at gunpoint. Some are being pushed, and Tommy gets shot. In shock and loaded with guilt, Murdoch shoots himself through the head and falls in the water which is now only 5 feet below. Cal then made a plan and he managed to take a seat by carrying a lost, crying, third-class child he spotted earlier. Hockley gets on board but there is no time and the water is coming on up the bridge. The musicians play for the last time, the song Nearer My God to Thee, and we see various people preparing to meet their end, a third-class mother and her children in their cabin, Thomas Andrews in the smoking room, the captain on the bridge and the Strauss couple, also in their cabin which is flooding, with the music ending, and all the lifeboats gone, all the passengers panic and most head in the direction of the stern, or jump off the ship. Titanic's propellers are now visible and they start to rise from the water. Jack grabs Rose to run aft and say that they must stay on board as long as possible. As Titanic sinks further and the stern gets higher, Jack and Rose fight their way to the very back of the ship. As they grab the railing to secure themselves on the steep angle, Rose reminds Jack that this is the place where they first met. At the same this time, the dome of the grand staircase implodes, flooding the staircase rapidly, and the electric lights pop. Water also crashes through the windows. Around 2:18 a.m., Titanic reaches an angle of over 45 degrees and it's still increasing. All sorts of furniture, plates and other loose objects can be seen and heard falling and crashing through the ship. Many passengers cling on while others fall and slide of the decks. Rose's mother and Molly Brown look in horror at the scene from a distance in Lifeboat 6, and Bruce Ismay in Collapsible C cannot bear watching it. The engineers in the electric rooms are still hanging on, desperately trying to keep the lights on, but one gets a massive electric shots and Titanic's lights instantly go out, plunging the ship in darkness. When her structure can no longer hold the weight, the keel starts to crack, and she splits between the third and fourth funnels. as the ship splits, Lovejoy is caught and killed within the gap and the stern falls back into the ocean. The forward section sinks completely, but the keel is still attached to the stern, which begins to rise again. With no one knowing what is going to happen, the stern quickly rises into a vertical position as Jack and Rose climb over the railing. The stern reaches 90 degrees, standing vertical above the ocean surface. For a moment it stays like that, but then, Titanic, broken in half and facing the dark ocean floor, begins her final descent into the darkness. Jack tells Rose to hold her breath. As the ship of dreams disappears below the water, never to be seen again for 73 years, Jack is caught in the suction of the Titanic, but he makes his way to the surface and reunites with Rose. They manage to swim to a floating panel of one of the ship's grand staircases, which seems to only be able to support one person's weight, so Rose climbs on top. Jack assures Rose that lifeboats will be returning soon to rescue them. But as time passes, many people die from the freezing water. Jack makes Rose promise him that she will never give up. As a lifeboat returns to the crowd of the dead, Rose sings "Oh Josephine in my flying machine," remembering when she was at the bow with Jack. As she spots a flashing light from the incoming lifeboat, Rose attempts to wake up Jack, but after a few moments, realizes he has died from the cold. Rose almost decides to give up, but then remembers that she promised Jack that she would never give up. Rose uses the last of her energy to swim to a nearby officer and blows the whistle that he had used, which alerts the lifeboat, and she is rescued. After the rescue, the film returns to 1996, with old Rose revealing that only 6 of 1,500 were rescued from the water. Back in 1912, Rose sees the RMS Carpathia. Aboard the rescuing vessel, Rose spots Cal looking for her, but she hides under a hood. Rose reveals to the crew of the Keldysh that Cal eventually remarried, but on October 29, 1929, he committed suicide by gunshot in a fit of grief. After he lost all of his money in the stock market crash of 1929. Carpathia arrives in New York and passes the Statue of Liberty in the rain. When a crew member asks for her name, Rose tells him that it's Rose Dawson. Rose walks over to the stern of the Keldysh and concludes by revealing that she had actually been in possession of the heart of the ocean all these years after finding it in the coat that Cal gave to her. Having finally returned to where it all happened, Rose drops the diamond into the ocean so it will rest where it belongs. As Rose slept that night, photos reveal she lived the life that she planned with Jack, such as learning to ride a horse. In heaven, or a dream, the wreck is shown becoming what she had been before the sinking. Rose enters the grand staircase once more, and is reunited with Jack at the top of the stairs at the clock in the grand staircase, surrounded by passengers that perished in the sinking. The two embrace and share a kiss as the passengers applaud. The film ends by panning up to the shining bright light above the window and the credits roll.